Three, two, one. Welcome to Jim's Take. Yet another episode. Thank you for tuning in. It's your favorite podcast, or at least I'll pretend it's your favorite podcast. Today, we are covering the seat at the table. Everybody wants a seat at the table. Almost all my clients. I want a seat at the table. When am I going to get my seat at the table? I'm doing all of this work. How do I get a seat at the table? And the challenge we always have is that nobody's really defined a seat at the table. It's yet another buzzword, run amok with no meaning, but we think we do. Like when you say, oh, I want a seat at the table, everyone's like, oh yeah, they nod. And they're like, oh yes, a seat at the table would be good. And then the conversation just ends. So I'm looking to break it down a little bit today. We can go in a lot of different paths. Seat at the table is an interesting concept because the first thing I have to say on this is that progress has been made to getting more people at the right seat in the table to make decisions. We need diversity at the seat of the table. Progress has been made. More females at the table. More people of different ethnicities at the table because their perspectives are valid. And we know when you have diversity in leadership decision-making positions, those companies tend to do better than others. Now, the challenge is we talk about seat at the table in this macro kind of context. But that's not what I'm talking about today, because the macro context, the bigger system, takes time to evolve. And I've been talking to the people here on that. Like the obvious challenge is the chief diversity officer, which I'll just get it out of the way, has been a massive failure, only because the businesses and systems that they were trying to influence weren't necessarily open to the changes that they were going to bring, right? This is like a multi-quarter, multi-year challenge to change perception within an organization, to do all of these things, seat at the table, real influence, all of that. And businesses are just too impatient. I think that's really what we're seeing. And they haven't been set up for the proper type of success. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the individuals I speak to who are desiring a seat at the table. And I get a lot of these conversations, this desire for the seat at the table, and nobody's really defined it. And with the multitude of clients claiming they deserve a seat at the table, who want the seat at the table, I'm saying seat at the table a lot right here in the first 2 minutes of this episode. The first question I have, well, what does that mean? And we generally cover a few different areas. And if you're thinking about your designation to a seat at the table or working towards it, this mythical kind of chair, throne that's going to give you all your hopes and dreams and everything you wanted. I'll just drop my pen. I do that all the time. I think we need to give a little context around this and say, one, is it really necessary for what it is that you're really desiring? Is it still relatable considering the changes in the overall workplace, capitalistic society that we live in, which is constantly evolving? And how do we balance this personal need for the subtext of this seat at the table versus the bigger macro challenges that exist? Just because you get a seat at the table doesn't mean you're going to have the influence at the table that you think you're going to have. So let's break this down. When we talk about seat at the table with clients, what are we really talking about? We cover a bunch of different things. One is this a question of recognition? And that's the first really big one. Are you questioning your own value? Are you thinking that being bestowed upon this title or seat or whatever it is this really the full recognition of your ability to execute on whatever it is, to have the influence that you want or anything else? Is this mythical seat really what you want? Or are you just looking for recognition? Do you want to have the title and all that stuff? Or do you just want someone to recognize your value? Because as we're seeing in the workplace today, less people want to give up what it takes to get that seat at the table and are much more interested in getting the recognition. The amount of people I see giving up their teams, they're like, I just want to be a solo contributor now. I don't want to be in middle management. I don't want to be in upper management. I don't want to deal with the mayhem. Just let me be a solo contributor, recognize, give me my money, and I'm out. If that's something you're looking for, seat at the table is kind of irrelevant, right? Now you're focused something on recognition, which is very, very different. And that's, I mean, relatable to my time in corporate is I wanted recognition and I never got it. And the reason I didn't get it was because I didn't know how to get it. I realized on my reflection, my frustration in corporate, my not getting to where I wanted to go, it's very quick to blame others for not giving you the recognition you think you deserve. And I deal with this a lot of clients. A lot of people have this fantasized talent, right? I know I'm so phenomenal. But the question really is, what are you doing that's worth recognizing? What are you doing to get that feeling back? And granted, yes, there are systems and buildings and organizations in place where you're just not recognized for your work and place sucks, yada, yada, fine. But if we're saying, look, I want recognition, that I'm amazing. I want a recognition that I'm bringing value. I want the recognition of my brilliance when I walk through this door every single day, and I want everyone to know it. Just because you have a seat at the table doesn't mean that. I know plenty of people who got a seat at the table who are abject failures, right? And so if recognition is what you really want, that's one really important thing to focus on. The second thing we talk about, if it's not recognition, or maybe a little bit of recognition, is it power or is it influence, right? Some people want a seat at the table so that they think they need the seat at the table, I should say, to have the influence to change the inner workings of an organization. And that has some validity to it, right? If you're in a decision-making position, you have that ability to influence the way things are done within the organization. Great. The question is the organization willing to accept it? That's a very different question. And so while we defer to leadership for our ideas to be accepted, we want this influence at a top level. Yes, you can have influence from all different levels of an organization, but we have to define it. And pairing influence with recognition are two different challenges. But that brings us to the third thing we want to talk about. When we see the leaders that are sitting at the table, we see their power. We see their influence. We recognize them as the leaders that they are. But what we have not seen, and this is the third part that we have to discuss, are the sacrifices and the ambition that they have in order to get there. And that's the big black box. What are you willing to give up to get this seat at the table? Because you're not going to get everything you want. You never do. You're not getting the bonus. You're not getting the raise. You're not getting this. You're not getting that and the seat at the table until you do something pretty crazy. We're all ambitious in different kinds of ways. And we all want recognition in different kinds of ways. Some people want to be paraded across a stage. Some people just want a thank you email. So everyone is different. We want to accomplish more. I feel like we all want to accomplish more. We want to be seen as the experts that we are. But many of us, myself included, very much, I never wanted to put the work in to get it. Because within the framework of corporate, I saw what it took. And I was like, F this. Like, this isn't worth my aggravation. It's not worth my time. And we see this now, and this going back to how capitalism is changing and how the next generation is really influencing this is they want things on their own terms. They're not going to get it, but they want things on their own terms. And some of the dialogue is changing. In order to get these things that we want, we have to build trust. We have to build the recognition. We have to earn it in a certain type of way. This comes from in-person social interactions. We have to build personal relationships. We have to play the political game. And the political game is not a negative comment. Okay? Often we talk about office politics in a negative fashion. But politics is also building good interpersonal relationships to make sure a bigger picture gets done. It's effectively good behavior and good friendship and good fellowship. That's, in theory, what it's supposed to be. You have to play that kind of game. And if you're not willing to play that game, you're not going to get what you think you deserve. You can't have everything. We have assumptions. We have judgments on what other people do, how good they are, how bad they are. Sometimes they're valid. Some people skated into a seat at the table without doing any of the work. Valid. Right? They had all the relationships in place, but they didn't really do it. They were thinkers. They weren't doers, like whatever. But if you want the recognition, the influence, the power, we have to talk about what you're willing to sacrifice and give up as well. There is a lot of, when we talk about the seat at the table, there is a lot of talk about the accountability that comes with your responsibility in order to get there. And life sucks. And relationship sucks. And you're in constant competition with other people who want, there's only like 10 seats there in this metaphorical table that we have, right? I imagine, if we were to define it, it's got a C in front of it. Chief blank officer, chief general counsel, whatever it is. And it's a noble goal. And I'm not meaning to tell you not to try. But the seat at the table comes when you get these other things figured out. When you figure out that recognition comes from doing something worth recognizing. There's an old quote. Who was it? Was it Roosevelt? Do something worth doing, or write something worth, do something worth writing about, or write something worth reading, something like that. Basically, it's like do something. Do something that's good. I forget what it was, but it's something else. If you Google it, it'll be there. Do something worth writing about, or write something brilliant, or do something worth writing about. I think that's kind of the saying. And it's valid. When I wrote my book, the first question is I was thinking about how to market it, and it was COVID. We didn't really market it at all. I just kind of put it out, which is fine. But the first question was, who are you? Right? Why should people do it? And if nobody knows who you are, if nobody has built that trust with you, or if you haven't earned that trust, everyone is naturally skeptical about you, your ability, what you're capable of. You have to prove yourself. And you can have these different types of influences. You can do this, but ultimately desiring the seat at the table is not a logical kind of check the box step. You can get there and sit at the table and not get any of these other things. Desiring a seat at the table is an emotional experience. You want to be included, right? You can have a seat at any table, but you want to be included. If you get a seat at this really senior table, how do you make sure that you're comfortable there and making the impact that you really want to make? It's an excuse, I think, to delay focusing on what we need to do. This lack of getting a seat at the table. It's easy to blame other people for not getting what we want. And sometimes that's valid. Sometimes it's valid that other people have neglected you, not supported you in the right kind of way, failed in their obligation to create an environment for everyone to be successful. But while you're blaming a macro system, there are other people figuring it out. And so if you want to get a seat at the table, you have to earn it and you have to be ready for it. And the way you do that is to showcase that recognition is almost irrelevant. You have to do something worth the recognition, where you don't even need the recognition. It's something you're so proud of that you don't care what anybody else says. If you want the influence and power, how do you start influencing and being powerful today? How do you carry yourself in every meeting today that warrants respect, that warrants recognition and power and influence, that makes people want to hitch their wagon to you? These are decisions you have to start today. Waiting for someone to recognize it, forget it. It's like the guy I met on My Future Self at the top of the mountain. If you wait for anybody else to do something for you, you're going to be dead in a box before it gets done. And so how do you build this, and what are you willing to give up? If it's that important, what are you willing to give up? It's almost like to-do lists. I talk to people all the time about the to-do list. I got too many things in the to-do list. So I say, delete it. Take them off. It's been on there for 7 weeks. Just take it off. You're not going to do it. Who cares? Right? Maybe seat at the table's not right for you. I've dealt with a lot of clients where after 2 meetings, we're like, guess what? Seat in the table is not in your future. And they're okay with that because now they understand it. And they're like, this isn't even something I want. I thought I wanted it. But I'm not willing to sacrifice these other things. I'm not willing to sacrifice family time. I'm not willing to sacrifice my weekends. I'm not going to be on a call at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to be on a call at 10 o'clock at night. I'm not willing to do that. That's okay. Totally fine. You could dictate that. You see a lot now. It's all the rage in these viral videos, like these kids saying, you want me in an 8 o'clock meeting? Well, I'm sorry. I have a workout class and I'm not going to be there. My day doesn't start until 9. Don't expect a bonus. Right? Like there are these, we have these assumptions built in. And I get this person, right? It's a valid point. You're paying me from 9 to 5. I'll sit in a seat from 9 to 5. Fine. I'm not promoting you. right? What are you willing to sacrifice to get what it is that you want? You can't complain that you're not getting something that you want out of work if you're not putting in the effort to do that. And it's the same with the seat at the table. What are you willing to do? And what are you willing to sacrifice? And how are you executing in order to get where it is that you actually need to be? Your reputation will precede you. You have to build something so that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If that's what you really want, you have to sit and build it on your own. Using the people around you, you have support, but that's something you have to do on your own. I hope this was helpful. I love rapping about this stuff. I'm sorry I have allergies right now, so I'm a little congested. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I think like it's metaphorical, it's mythical. It's one of these things that we haven't put any definition on, but it also can breed resentment. And that's what I want to prevent this from is, you know what, some people don't want the seat at the table, even though they think they do, or they're not willing to do it. And that's fine. Whatever your decision is, just own it and be happy with it. Reach out for help. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. I love it. I love conversations. Send me a note. Let's have one. And I'll talk to everybody very soon. Have a wonderful week.